تحية طيبة طلابنا الأعزاء، ورمضان كريم عليكم إن شاء الله جميعا وعلى عوائلكم. نتمنى لكم إن شاء الله يعود عليكم بالصحة والخير والعافية والنجاح. معاكم دكتور كرم الله شاكر محمود. And today we are going to start with the first lecture in pharmacology. Pharmacology is the most, or one of the most important topics you have to learn in School of Pharmacy, inshallah, as a student in stage 3. I hope everyone has joined our Google Classroom today. Just before starting our lecture today, I would like to recommend to have like a pen or pencil and paper and write down like most what we are or all what we are going to talk about. Writing down is very important skill we have to use in every single pharmacology lecture. Before starting our lecture today, there are 3 main important references that can help you in your studying. First and the most important one is Lippincott Illustrated Reviews Pharmacology. Again, we have Katzing Pharmacology, and the last one we have Rang and Dale's Pharmacology. These 3 important textbooks can help you and support you during your study. Before starting our lecture today, we have to start with a few terms which are quite important, very important for you. First of all, pharmacology, علم الأدوية. What do we mean by pharmacology? Pharmacology, as you know, consists from 2 main compartments or from 2 main parts, pharmaco and ology. Pharmaco means medications or drug or medicines, and ology mean science. So it is science that studies medications, drug, or chemical substances that affect the human bodies. So pharmacology explain what drugs do to our bodies, what drugs do to our bodies, and that part of pharmacology called pharmacodynamics or dynamics. And again, the second part of pharmacology explains what our bodies do to medications after ingestion, these medication, and that part called pharmacokinetics or pharmacokinetics. So pharmacology can explain why people experience wide range of side effects, and also explain the mechanism of action of the therapeutic and side effect of different medications that are approved for consumption or for consuming by human body. Again, pharmacology has more than one kind. Has more than one kind or one type. So we have clinical pharmacology, we have neuropharmacology, and the most important kind of pharmacology is the medical pharmacology, which is area or part of pharmacology that's concerned with the use of different chemical compounds in the prevention, diagnosis, and the treatment of wide range of diseases, especially in human beings. So medical terminology concerned with the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of diseases in human beings. And finally, toxicology. What do we mean by toxicology? Toxicology, again, part of the pharmacology, which is focuses or concentrates on undesirable or unuseful effect of chemicals on biological system. And here, biological system mainly means the human body. What do we mean by a drug or medicine or medication? Just before starting with the definition of these terms, I would like just to remind you, all these terms are interchangeable. So drug, medicine, and medications refer to each other. They can be used instead of each other. So what do we mean by a drug? A drug is a chemical substance that interact with the different body component in order to change the physiological function. These chemical components are absorbed into systemic circulation, and I mean blood circulation here. So they bind to a specific protein, specific site, specific receptor, changing the function of specific kind of cells. And changing of a specific function means either increasing, decreasing, inhibiting, or modulating the function of this or these cells. So changing the function of cells means either increasing, decreasing, modulating, or even inhibiting the function of these cells. It depends on the drug and the site of binding and the cell itself. For example, anti-cancer drug bind to specific receptors or proteins on the surface of the cancer cells. This can stimulate cell death. And again, cell death is a normal physiological function. However, in this situation, we need to stimulate cell death. I mean, cancer cell death in order to eliminate these abnormal cells from human body. What is the origin of drugs? In general, most of our drugs that are consumed by a human body can be produced or generated from three main approaches. So we have synthetic, natural, or semi-synthetic drugs. Natural drugs, as you know, these drugs or these medications extracted directly from plants and used directly by a human being without any kind of chemical changes. The synthetic compounds, so these drugs are totally developed in human, or by a human, from chemical compounds, from various chemical compounds to generate a new chemical drug or medication that have specific therapeutic activity or activities. So what do we mean by semi-synthetic molecule? Semi-synthetic molecule is a natural compound or molecule that undergoes a specific chemical modification or modulation to generate another molecule which is a bit related to the first molecule. However, the last or the latter molecule have a slightly or sometimes better therapeutic effect, less undesirable side effect, or better pharmacokinetic profile. And we are going to talk about all these topics in much more details in the future, inshallah. And we have example here, foxglove, which is a famous plant, نبتة كف الثعلب. The scientific name of this plant called digitalis purpura. And from this plant, we can extract a very important medications for treatment of heart failure. For example, we have digoxin, which is the most common one, and we have digoxin. As I mentioned previously, pharmacokinetics composed of two main compartments: pharmacokinetics, kinetics, and pharmacodynamics or dynamics. So, what do we mean by pharmacokinetics? Again, just to remind you, pharmacokinetics mean what does our body do to the drug. And in this situation, our body absorb the drugs after ingesting it, mainly from the GIT. Again, after that, the drug distributed throughout our body by the systemic circulation. The drug metabolized by endogenous enzyme, mainly by the hepatic enzyme available in your liver. Also, again, there's wide range of enzyme available in your skin, lung, heart, adipose tissue, skeletal muscle, etc. And finally, after a specific period of time, the drug is eliminated from your body, either with urine, feces, breathing, or even with the sweats from your skin. The other part of pharmacology called pharmacodynamics, and pharmacodynamics mean what does the drug do to our body. First of all, the drug interact with a specific component in your body, and after that, this interaction can generate a specific action, either useful, which is called therapeutic action, or undesirable, which is called side effect. So the interaction of your body with a specific component, this component could be receptor, which is a specific kind of a protein available on the cell receptor, ion channel, different ion channels such as sodium, potassium, calcium ion channels. The drug also can interact with a specific enzyme, and this interaction means either activating, inactivating that kind of, that specific enzyme. Again, and lastly, the drug can affect the immune system, so it can activate, inactivate, or even inhibit the immune system. As I mentioned previously, pharmacokinetics describe the effect of our bodies on the drug after ingesting this medication. And there are 4 main stages. And to be honest, these stages are not separated from each other. So they sometimes these stages can happen or can take place simultaneously or at the same time. So absorption of the drug into the blood circulation across cell membranes to enter the cell, distribution throughout the body, as I say, by the systemic circulation, by the bloodstream, metabolism or breaking down of the drugs by different enzymes, mainly hepatic enzyme, and final excretion of the drug from your body. Pharmacodynamics states or describes the action of the drugs on your body. And again, these drugs can be classified into 2 main compartments, either useful, which called therapeutic effect, or this action could be undesirable, which called side effect or toxic effect. So these drugs can modulate many physiological function, and again, or accordingly, these drugs can be classified into major treatment areas. And here we have some of these areas. So we have drugs can be used for treatment of cancer, can be used for as a contraceptive agent, which agent that can inhibit pregnancy, analgesic drugs or painkillers, drugs that can be used for respiratory, different respiratory disorders management, for treatment of obesity, or even drugs can be classified as antibacterial or antibiotic that can be used for treatment of different kind of infection, whether this infection viral, bacterial, fungal, etc. So what is the nature of the drug? What is the consistency? What is the composition of the drug? Here I'm talking about the physical and chemical composition of the drug. Drugs can be composed from inorganic, organic molecules. Drugs also sometimes composed of small peptides or large proteins, nucleic acid, lipid, and even carbohydrates. And to be honest, the composition of drugs is not as simple as this. So some drugs have quite complicated nature. I mean, it consists of more than one chemical consistency, more than one chemical identity. Drugs found in plants or animals as a natural product, or as I mentioned previously, partially or completely synthesized in specific factories or labs. In terms of the optical activity, the drugs are, or many drugs are optically active. It means they contain one or more asymmetric center and can exist as enantiomers. Drugs usually vary in terms of size, in terms of chemical composition, in terms of molecular weight, in terms of the physical properties, in terms of the optical properties, in terms of the pharmacological actions. Here we are going to talk about variation among drugs in terms of size and molecular weight. In general, a drug varies in size, and most drugs have molecular size between 7 for lithium to 50,000 for different thrombolytic enzymes or even proteins. In general, most drugs have molecular weight between 100 up to 1,000. As I mentioned previously, one important mechanism by which a drug induces its therapeutic or even undesirable effect is the binding between the drug and a specific receptor. And the receptor, as I mentioned previously, is a specific protein, quite complicated protein, available on the cell receptor. So the binding of the drug with its receptor can be very strong by using or exploiting covalent bonds, and this bindings mainly is irreversible kind of binding. So it's quite or very difficult to separate the drugs from its receptor, and the body needs to regenerate another set of receptor to avoid that kind of binding or inhibiting or stimulating. However, there are another kind of bond which is a bit weaker, which is a weaker electrostatic bond, and that kind of interaction can be hydrogen, van der Waals, and even hydrophobic bonds. Here I'm going to show you the mechanism by which the drug can interact with its receptor and the physiological consequences for this binding. Here we have this yellow figure represent the drug molecule. We have a receptor, we have cell membrane, and we have here the intracellular compartment, and of course we have the extracellular compartment. So binding of the drug with its receptor, can induce or stimulate intracellular activation or even inactivation of a specific set of proteins. And here I'm not going to too much details. So say, for example, we have protein A and the protein B and sometimes protein C, and again, it depends on the kind of the receptor. So binding of the drug with its receptor activate or inhibits wide range of proteins. This activation again can change and or inactivating DNA or an RNA activity. This activation or inactivate the cell function. And again, what do we mean by changing of the cell function? Changing of the cell function can, for example, pressure, can decrease heart rate, can stimulate enzymatic activity, can improve digestion, can decrease HCl. There's wide range of therapeutic activities, and again, in the same time, we have a wide range of undesirable effects can be generated by or can be due to interaction drug with its receptor on cell membrane. Thank you for your listening. and I hope you enjoyed our meeting today. If you have any question, if you have any inquiry, if you need to ask about something in my lecture, all you need to do is just to leave a comment in our Google Classroom, and I would reply your inquiry as soon as possible. Thank you for listening, and see you inshallah.